Hey everyone. Well, the weather today is not conducive to my normal work in the woods with drones. I got passing showers and stuff and some wind, so I'm gonna tinker on the Samurai today. As I mentioned in my last video, I've got just a few days to get this thing ready to go for a trip in South Central Oregon. Major things that I'm going to address today is I'm going to replace the headlights. I found a set of sealed beam LEDs with projectors in them, and so I'm going to replace these headlights with those. And then I'm going to address this coolant reservoir issue as well. Now, I was going to build my own coolant reservoir, but just a couple minutes of web mining, and I turned up this little thing on Amazon. It was only 27 bucks. It's got a little sight glass on it. It's got a few ports and a drain plug, and it's a perfect size, and I should be able to make this work just fine for my reservoir for 27 bucks. I mean, I would have had hours into building something just like this, and the fabrication looks pretty good, so that's what we're going to use for that. And here's the headlights I got. Now, something interesting about the Samurai's headlight wiring system. I haven't checked on this one, but if I remember right, like I said, I've owned several Samurais before. I think the headlights are kind of weird on these. They have 12 volts going to them at all times, and then the ground is switched. So when you turn the switch, the headlight switch on and off, you're actually turning on the ground. You're actually applying a ground to one side of the headlight instead of the 12 volts. So those LED headlights may not work as installed. I may have to put some relays or something in, but if I do, so be it. We'll figure it out. It shouldn't be too difficult. So let's get to work. Now, this grill is broken here, but I'm not going to throw a new one in yet because this upper core support here is bent. It's got this wrinkle in it. I think it'll be difficult for me to make that look good, so I ordered a replacement one. It's actually coming from India. They must have a place that remanufactures these pieces there, so I won't get it in time for the trip, but it doesn't really matter. We'll just use the broken stuff for now. Yeah, as expected, neither the low or the high beams work with this thing plugged in here. I've got the headlights on now. So we're going to hook a voltmeter up and just verify what this LED light actually needs. It should need ground on one and then 12 volts on either of the other two terminals for low and high beam. And then we'll figure out what the Samurai has, and then we'll figure out how to convert what the Samurai is producing into something that the lights can use. All right, I've got the low beams on now. Hook my voltmeter up there. We've got negative 12.2, so we got a ground here and plus 12 volts there. Turn the high beams on. And I expect we'll see nothing here. That's correct. And then minus 12 volts here. Yep. Okay, let's go see what this LED light needs. You'll have to excuse the cluttered state of my workbench here. Always got something going on. So I've got my 12 volt power supply here. That's our low beam. That's our high beam. Oh, these things are going to be awesome. So I took a Sharpie just for my own understanding and wrote see, I got a G and an L and an H. Back on the Samurai here, essentially what we've got is just reversed polarity. So so this one needs to be a ground for the LED to operate, and instead it's plus 12 volts all the time, and then these two are switched on and off as grounds. Well, I spent some time mulling this over in my head. For some reason I thought I could do this with a single pole relay, but I definitely can't. I have to have a double pole relay in order to essentially turn switched grounds into switched plus 12 volts to the LED headlights. And so I don't have any waterproof ones. I do have some that have, you know, clear cases, snap together ones that are used more for like industrial applications. I don't want to throw that in here because the first time I go through some water, those things are going to get corroded inside and quit working. So I did order some double pole, double throw relays off of Amazon. They should be here in a day or two. At least for now, I want to get the headlights installed, and in order to do that, I had to do some grinding and remove some of the heatsink material. This is the passenger side one. Driver side one's right here. Now, they didn't fit inside the buckets. These top pieces prevented that from happening, and then they also hit the radiator, but with those modifications, they now fit in there just fine. So I'm going to temporarily wire these up so I have just low beams only. That's pretty easy to do. So no high beams, but at least I'll be able to drive it at night tonight, which I'm hoping to put some more miles on it. So yeah, we'll bolt these into place and move on to the next project. Well, both of the headlights are in there. I think they look pretty good. Like I said, no high beams yet. That'll be tomorrow once the double pole, double throw relay shows up. I can wire that in pretty quick. I got a good schematic in my head. So yeah, next up we're gonna try and figure out how to get that coolant reservoir mounted there. I definitely am gonna have to get some different fittings. I don't know what these O-ring fittings are in here. It's probably something metric. I don't know, M14 or something. And this barb size is like halfway in between 1/2 inch and 3/8 inch. Both sizes of which I have plenty of. I don't know if they make 7/16 fuel line or coolant line. They probably do, but I don't have any. So I got to get an adapter for that and an adapter for that. Make up a plate to bolt this thing right about here. And we should be in business. I got to run into town to get that stuff, so I'll be back with you shortly. Well, as usual, fire department interrupted any meaningful progress I was going to make on the Samurai this evening, but before I button things up for the evening and shut down the compressor, I'm going to cut out a mounting plate for that catch can. I drew this thing up in CAD. I happen to have some 3/16 aluminum sheet in the CNC table, so that's what we're going to cut it out of. Probably a little overkill, but that's okay. Let's try that. Well, it is a new day. We're a new evening out here. I didn't get the chance to work on the Samurai at all yesterday. Just got 2 days left to go until the trip. I've already put in 14 hours for my work day today, so I'm a little bit punchy, but I got an hour or two of daylight left. So we're gonna get this catch can installed. This is what I came up with for a mounting bracket. Cut this piece of aluminum. It's gonna bolt right here with a few bolts. I'll just have to fish the nuts basically in through this opening on the back side, but that shouldn't be too difficult. That one bolt on the very bottom is way back in there. I've used this trick for years. It works great. I just put a piece of blue electrical tape on a ratcheting wrench that holds the nut into place, and so I can kind of fish it way back in there with this long wrench and tighten it up that way. Really works pretty good. When you're installing one of these, a reservoir like this, it has to be physically higher than all other parts of the engine. Otherwise, you're going to end up with an air bubble in the engine or the radiator. That's a good spot for it because it is higher than any of the coolant passages or anything. So and then the way the system works is it constantly circulates out of the head right here and back into the reservoir, and then back down into the top of the radiator here, and that kind of forces all the air bubbles to collect there. It's not a half bad system. I do have to change this hose size to something slightly smaller. This being a Chinese manufactured thing, it came with these O-ring M14 fittings, which I couldn't find any of locally. Not too much of a surprise. These are actually really close to 7/16 fuel line in size, so I got some 7/16 inch barb fittings to go in here and into the head, and so we're just going to replace the hose with 7/16 on both sides. It should work just fine for us. Well, my lines are all installed. Everything's zip tied out of the way. Got a nice steady stream of recirculating flow there, and my little set gauge looks good. I'm gonna throw the cap on this thing. Where would I put that? It's right here. Let the Samurai idle for a while and build some pressure in the system and make sure I don't have any leaks. I bought these double pole, double throw 12-volt relays. I 3D printed these covers for them, and I was going to put some spade terminals on here, but I actually think I'm just going to solder them. And yeah, I think that's going to work just as well. I'll solder them, pop these covers on, screw those relays down, and I'm betting that it'll just last forever. Those LED headlights probably only take, you know, maybe 3 amps each, not a whole lot of power, and these are 20 amp relays. So, and they're also potted in epoxy, so I'm betting I'll never touch these again once they're installed. So let's heat up the soldering iron and get these installed. See if I can eke this fuel filter out of here. I doubt this thing's ever been changed, but it did come out. It's nice. Yeah, looks like nice clean fuel. There's some sediment in the bottom of that, but not too much. Looks like maybe a little bit of water. Half a teaspoon or something worth. See that kind of gray slimy stuff there? That's good. Since I've put, you know, 100+ miles on it, I would have sucked any water out of the tank already. It would have ended up in there, so. Well, it looks like a pretty big mess in here, and that's because, well, it is a pretty big mess in here, but I actually expect to make some pretty good progress. Almost everything that I have left to do today is reassembly. Got this radio box put together last night. It looks super awesome, and it fits right in there and, you know, into the factory place. It utilizes the factory mounting bolts and doesn't interfere with anything, so kind of excited about that. I'm gonna get all this stuff wired up here, correct some issues with the previous owner's wiring, and here in an hour or so I ought to be able to start pulling all the tools and stuff out of the Samurai. Moment of truth here. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap this video up here. I still have a couple of hours of packing that I have to do. I just got back from about a 50-mile test drive with this thing. Mostly everything worked good, but I intentionally went up and down some steep grades around my house, and when I came back there was a big oil leak. Come to find out, the turbo drain hose, which I don't know if you can see here, is just routed too close to that exhaust manifold, and it basically burned through the side of the hose. Definitely not a good thing. And I can't just replace it with more hose. That's just going to happen again. So I'm going to pull that turbo drain flange off and just weld on a piece of 1/2-inch pipe and machine a barb at the end of that, and that'll go right into that heater hose that's right there. So that's really the easiest way to take care of that. I'm probably not going to show that on camera. Pretty basic thing to do, but that'll prevent that from ever happening again. So yeah, that's the one thing I have left to do. I'm just going to go over everything that we did here in the last few days. So new LED headlights with relays in to correct the Samurai's funny wiring. Pulled the bumper off and repainted it, and pulled the tow bar off. Whipped up this little coolant catch can thing right here. Put a new battery in, put this battery tie down in here, replaced this solenoid here, cleaned up some wiring and stuff like that, replaced this heater hose fitting right here. I think that's everything under the hood. Obviously put some new wipers on it, cleaned up everything outside here. As far as the inside goes, we fabbed up this stereo box here and our USB power supplies. That worked out pretty good. Put some seat covers on. I think that's everything for the front here. I didn't show it here, but I've got a spot for this VHF radio here right over there. And then I put this antenna up here, and that'll let me use VHF frequencies, amateur frequencies on this trip. Put the spare tire on here. Thanks to my friend Mark for sourcing that. Put new lenses on the back, and yeah, I painted the inside here. Filled up my rack with a new shovel and axe. So thanks for following along, guys. I'm going to end the video here. I've got 4 or 5 hours left in the day here to get all my camping gear packed, get this video edited and uploaded, and I still got to run into town and pick up some food for the weekend. So yeah, guys, thanks for following along, and we'll catch you on the next one.